Hi, everyone. In this episode of Beyond the Mat, we're so excited to have Leslie Salmon Jones and her husband, Jeff W. Jones. And Leslie and Jeff are the founders of Afro Yoga, which is yoga and dance with live music and really so much more. And we're so excited that Leslie is going to be this year's host and teacher at Yoga Reaches Out. And her husband, Jeff, is also um, a musician, engineer, and multi-instrumentalist. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Mark. We're honored to be here.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot about your work with Afro Flow Yoga, and you're doing such a great job. A lot of great work, but I think that would be a great place to start. If you could share more about Afro Flow Yoga and some of the work that you're doing with everyone out there.
Great.
Yes.
Great. So, well, as you said, Afro Flow Yoga is a combination of live music and yoga and movement. And we've been doing Afro Flow Yoga. We co-created it back in 2008. And we've had the honor of working with people from all over the world. We've been traveling out throughout the world. And we really aspire and hope to bring healing and wellness and transformation to all communities by reaching back to the root. And because we deal with a lot of African diaspora embodied practices such as dance and also yoga, which reaches back to ancient Egypt and the beautiful rhythms, we find that when you go back to the root, it's like a tree. When a tree has roots, it can stand tall and it won't fall. So we aspire to bring those connections back to many people, and particularly people of the BIPOC communities, the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. We like to make sure those communities who've been disproportionately affected, as we know, by COVID right now, and there's health disparity, that they have something to be inspired by, that we can empower and inspire all people.
The music ends up being many different facets of the African diaspora, whether it's Caribbean music, it could be some jazz, but a lot of the rhythms are African derived, and the music I play different instruments. There are African instruments. I play percussion, as you can see in the background.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the background there.
Yeah, I play upright bass, so a lot of healing tones. And the background of the music also kind of comes from generations of musicians in my family who are also technologists. And so that's that was my dad's bass back then. Played with Billie Holiday, Sammy Davis Jr.,
Wow.
all those folks.
Wow.
So yeah, just a little tip of the iceberg musically, and that all comes through, and things that came out of also church, spiritual kind of feelings of healing, yeah, tempos and rhythms.
That's great. And you guys are successful entrepreneurs. I can't imagine how busy you are running your own business. You must be running 110 miles an hour. But if there's anyone watching right now that's an entrepreneur, maybe thinking about starting their own business, what advice would you give to them?
I would definitely say really be connected with what you're wanting to do and finding your niche, your special gift that you're bringing to the world. So years ago, I've been working for myself for several years, and oftentimes people get involved in business because they're passionate about it. And what happens is we end up wearing many hats. And so it's important to bring your passion in, but also surround yourself with people, a team of experts, or thinking about how you're going to grow. Because if you grow your business and you're in the center of your business, and then one day you have to step out, everything's going to fall apart. So you
Right.
want to
Right.
make sure that as you're doing something that you're passionate about, that you're also thinking about the systems and how you're growing. And it's like an ecosystem. So
Right.
like we're so blessed to have each other to work with.
Right.
No one's an island, and there's so much great wisdom around there and the power of collaboration.
And we have a beautiful team that's exceptional in helping us, and they understand our mission. Uh, the main thing in business is to make sure you understand the legal aspects,
Yeah.
tax consequences, and and have those things in place, and then have a mentor, a good mentor, and be a good mentee to follow that advice, the experience, failures, and successes of people who have come before you is
Right.
good to know. Yeah, because a lot of us, especially artists, we um, focus on our art, and down the road we realize we have to have all these different departments. You have to be your own technology department, especially in COVID, being able to broadcast virtually and things like that. So even having a team there is helpful.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And I agree with team and just surrounding yourself with great people. I think it's really so important. And how about right now? What's been the biggest project and focus? Like, what are you guys working on coming up this week? I know that's a loaded question because you're working on probably so many things, but is there anything that you want to share that you're working on now?
Oh gosh. Well, yes, there are so many layers and levels of what we're working on, but with the fall coming up, and we have, of course, we've had to redesign our business with COVID, as many people have. So our training programs um, are all being transferred virtually. And so we have our new upcoming webinar series and our teacher training program. And now we're working on getting our teachers who we have all over the world, they've been taught to do in-person classes. So now that we figured out how to do it for ourselves, we've been training them. And then we have some retreats that we had scheduled early in 2020. And thank you. Scheduled. See here. Here we have a
See,
technical.
you guys are quick. Yeah.
We're having a technical moment, but
I think it's. I'll keep going. We'll turn on the mic just a second.
Perfect. I could still hear you. No worries. That's the beauty of Zoom.
that is the beauty of Zoom. So we have some upcoming retreats that we had scheduled, we had contracted for. So now it's figuring out how to make them virtual. And that is a challenge because that certainly the amount of hours that you spend at a retreat doesn't translate on Zoom because that could be very stressful.
Right. Right.
we're recreating, so I'm doing a lot of writing and thinking about visioning what that should look like, and then also addressing the needs of the people right now in
Yeah.
this moment. We're finding so many people are suffering with extreme anxiety,
Yeah.
fear, uncertainty, and then there's also some new things that people are celebrating. So holding the joy and the pain and being able to do that virtually and consistently is what we're constantly working on.
Right.
How's sound? We switched to the microphone temporarily.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sound is still great.
Okay.
It's great to have a techie husband.
I know that was like I think you fixed that faster than I could tie my shoes. So that was pretty quick, Jeff.
Good.
It's
Okay.
pretty amazing.
And,
It's like the Grand Prix.
Yeah, it was like the NASCAR changeover.
All right, so Leslie's good with her mic. Yeah, with our big project, really, since we are in COVID, and we usually are live, the music is live, so it's very difficult to have somebody in another place and then have the music, in another location. This has been the challenge for so many artists now that
Right.
everybody really has to be in the same space. So we have to basically record the music with a practice run through with the person, because the sequence of Afro Flow Yoga is very dynamic, and so we have to record it and then have them play it on their computer. So this has been the musical challenge for Afro Flow Yoga during COVID. Yeah.
And as you can see, Jeff is so technically skilled that he will figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, years of experience, and that's where the years of correcting things that go awry.
Yep.
Fast.
Yeah. And same with I feel like it's similar for me too in our team and our role, because with Yoga Reaches Out, there's nothing like having thousands of people in the space at Gillette Stadium practicing. But then Jeff, too, you're so right. Music is a huge part of the day. So having that live music there. So we really we really came together as a team and said, how can we adjust this to a virtual event? So I think for October 25th, as all that comes together, we're going to be really excited to show that to people. But yeah, I give you so much credit, because even with our event, I know all the work that goes into trying to adjust to the new norm. And you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about the future of how you're going to do things. So it's great.
Yeah, and make sure you have fresh batteries in your headset. We and in fact, I tested the batteries and they tested good, but make sure you have them standing by.
Yeah.
Things are charged up.
I know, right? All the little things you just would normally would never think of. So that now we will see. We just picked that up for the 25th. And Leslie, I would love. Could you talk more about too? I know you've been practicing yoga for a long time, but could you talk about your start into yoga and really your journey?
Sure.
And then Jeff, I would love to also ask you too about the first instrument you ever played.
Okay.
By the way, Jeff is a yogi as well.
Yeah.
So I started. My background's in dance. I started dancing at the age of 7, ballet, and then African Caribbean dance, and then I went to Alvin Ailey in the 90s. I'm dating myself. And Alvin Ailey, if some of you haven't heard of Alvin Ailey, definitely look it up. And Alvin Ailey was one of the first African American choreographers, phenomenal. He passed away in '89, but I got to train at Alvin Ailey in New York. And part of our training, yoga was a requirement. And this is before yoga was a trend. I mean, yoga, before the explosion of yoga really all over the U.S. And it was so grounding for me. But yoga and dance have always been connected. So that's why Afro Flow Yoga, with the movement, with the dance and yoga, was just a natural evolution.
Yeah.
And then, of course, meditation and was part of that as well. Yeah.
That's great. And Jeff, how about your combination of music, like how really how you got started in music, and then also just you're combining that with yoga too.
Well, let's see. Music, I started playing piano at age 6. My grandmother was a uh, concert organist in Boston here. She was on the radio here in Boston back in the 30s, broadcasting services, from different things, and also the church. So I basically grew up underneath her organ bench a very young age in my coloring book, and I would watch her feet kick the pedals underneath the organ. Those are my earliest recollections, and of course they're bass tones, in the big church organ, so the vibrations really connect with you. My dad was a bass player, and I found a bass up in the attic. When I was a teenager, I had played trumpet prior to that in high school, and so I taught myself bass. My dad didn't want me to be a musician, even though, because the life of a musician can be tough, particularly, African American musicians on the road wasn't the best back in my dad's day. So he wasn't going on the road. When he would come here, people would hire him. But and later on, so I ended up touring and playing bass and traveling all over, playing in casinos and different places, Canada, and I also started playing in church. So my mother also was a coloratura soprano, so I also sing, so I got a lot of that. The spiritual aspect came from my folks and the experience of having to sit through, hundreds of concerts as a young child, and then later on, when I was working in engineering, in communication, satellite communication, I worked for a company. It was very stressful, and then I had bought a house, and I had an architect come to my house who was a Sikh. He was actually Jewish, but he had changed to Sikh. He had a turban, and he was into Kundalini yoga. And he invited me to one of his huge retreats, and everybody was wearing white. And that was back in '92, and that's where. And he gave me a book about Kundalini yoga, and that's where it was help reduce my stress. So that was where I entered into that aspect. And then Leslie and I had done other projects together, fitness DVDs. So the music and the movement came even before Afro Flow Yoga. So we have fitness DVDs created.
That's great. That's amazing. It's like the perfect storms coming together. That's awesome. And I mean, Jeff, I am not musically. I wouldn't consider myself musically talented, but I always really admire somebody like you. I'm sure you can probably hear something and pick it up, or I see all the instruments behind you. Just that you can play multiple and sing too is amazing. So it's great.
Oftentimes, Mark, when I'm practicing, I'm like, how many musicians are with Jeff?
Yeah.
I swear he has about 10 arms and legs. It's really amazing.
Foot tambourines, and then I'll play electric bass while I'm playing the percussion also in between. I can interweave it, and singing all at the same time. And I guess that comes from multitasking, or what would you call it? Sometimes being a distracted person in a positive way. ADD put to the best use,
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's amazing because you're working with people from all around the world, just like you said. And I know you've traveled a little bit, but what would you say is the most unique place you've practiced yoga?
I would say Bali, Indonesia was pretty incredible. We actually went to Bali on our honeymoon back in '96, and then and then 20 years later, we ended up teaching.
Yeah, they
Wow.
hired us. It was kind of one of those, a special moment where it was, 20 years later, we got a call and they wanted us to come do a festival there,
Yeah.
the Bali Spirit Fest.
Yeah. And what was really cool about that is not only do we love Bali and it's a beautiful place, but we were teaching to an international community. So many people didn't even speak English. So
Right.
there were multiple languages, but we had about 150 or 200 people in a circle at one time.
Yeah.
And it was just each workshop, they were just huge. And the love, it was so powerful just to feel that connection because movement is a whole other language.
Yeah.
So to see people who had different colors, sizes, shapes, ages, levels in this circle of love was just so amazing.
Yeah, I think you can see on our website, afroflowyoga.com, I think we have, on our Instagram, I think we have some excerpts of those classes where there were, a couple of hundred people. And Leslie's amazing at, it's like herding cats. And then musically, they had a huge sound system, and I'm up on a big stage by myself, and it just sounds thunderous. So the power and the vibrations, having a good sound crew is very important. I bring my own mixer with me, so I don't have to. It's like here's one plug, and I don't have to worry about them, mixing my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just say, kind of on the other end of that, we've taught in really challenging places, places with a lot of. We've taught up in Thunder Bay, Canada, to Indigenous youth who really have been suffering from
Murder,
suicide,
addiction.
Yeah. And
The foster education system where they have to live with a foster family, which a lot of times can be disastrous. What was that? The school system that took the kids, a lot of the Indian kids, way back when.
The '60s sweep. But,
it's still going on in a different phase. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we've taught in many situations where last year we were teaching a group of kids in a school that had mold in it.
Oh my God.
They're going to be tearing that school down, but
Yeah. But just to get creative in the space to bring joy to a lot of kids in the class were autistic, and there was just so much going on. But when they'd sit in the circle and they'd hear the drums, and we'd have them focus on their breath.
Or I play a flute sometimes.
Yeah.
It's puppet master in order to get them to, especially the autistic kids, they really responded so well, where we're like, gee, they're following the directions.
Yeah.
And then I have little bells and things. It's like, you can use certain things to get them to be like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really love about the work that you do too. It's these things like yoga, music, dance, they can transcend so many communities and groups and people. So it's so amazing you're bringing all that together. And even with during this time, like we said a little bit earlier with COVID-19, where people are home a lot more, or people are spending more time on technology, I think they need it more than ever, whether it's yoga, music, or dance. But could you talk a little bit more about your practice during COVID-19? So I see the setup behind you is just great, but has that really been your studio right there?
Not before COVID.
Right. Not before COVID,
we
but
we
during.
created this, and on March 15th, we got the word that a bunch of things were canceled. I think probably 2 or 3 days before, and I've run sound for bands, and always been in technology. My dad was a Inspector Gadget kind of guy also, so I had all the things. I had the lights, and we had monitors. So we were able to put this together in 2 days and get up and running on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Zoom. And Leslie was like, "We're going to do this." Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, yes. Get it done. We had the cameras because a lot of people, had to run out and buy cameras and they were out of stock. But Leslie had bought these amazing cameras like a couple of years ago, and she's been using Zoom for 4 years, a teacher training program. So she had all that experience too to overcome a lot of those obstacles.
Yeah, and you also asking, Mark, if we actually use the studio for our own practice?
Yeah, yep. So are you using is that your main space if you're
Well,
practicing at home? Yeah.
well, yes. So there, as Jeff said, it used to be our living room, and so what I love is that we can, if we're watching, anything, we just have the mats there automatically.
Yep.
Practice in here daily, and we also, since COVID, started to practice a meditation practice and a yoga practice upstairs, and so we do these deep stretching, and it's been amazing.
Yeah.
And then the other place I love to practice is in the garden.
Ah, sounds like a great spot.
Love it. Take the yoga
Yeah.
mats outside, put the little fountain on, and do my practice there. So
Yeah. That's great. And Leslie, like I said before, we are just so thrilled to have you leading our participants this year for Yoga Reaches Out. But what else should participants know about you? For anyone watching, I can tell everyone out there, I've been on Zoom with Leslie a couple times, and I think you're gonna just love having her on the day. But what else what else should they know about you?
Omega Women's Leadership Program that you
yes.
co-founded.
Yes. So
For starters.
thank you. It's always good to have a great partner who reminds you of what you've done, and who you are. But one of the things of being very passionate about the work within Afro Flow Yoga is I also am very passionate about women's leadership. And so for the past 8 years, I've been working alongside with co-founders of the Omega Women's Leadership Intensive Center. And I've been working with Malika Dutt, an amazing woman human rights activist, Carla Goldstein, who's the president of the Omega Institute, and Sharon Salzberg, who's an incredible meditation teacher. And we created this wonderful curriculum, and every year we have an annual retreat bringing over 40 women leaders together. And what I'm so excited about now is the women's movement has so much fire underneath it, and so I feel like that work and the work that Jeff and I have been doing with the youth and has brought us into preparation for this moment with all racial unrest. We've been doing racial healing workshops for several years, and also with COVID, the health disparities. So everything's intersected right now, and I'm excited about that. Other than that, what's up?
You've done things with the New York Knicks. We lived in New York for several
No
years.
way.
We did healthy lifestyles for kids. They had a whole program about nutrition. So that was, back then there were food deserts, particularly in Harlem and a lot of places. People didn't have decent food way before Whole Foods came in. There was an original Whole Foods in Greenwich Village that we used to go to, and then they kind of took the Whole Foods kind of either took the name or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that was an amazing. And Leslie's been on different boards, with the Yoga Alliance.
I'm on the board right now.
Doing work with Kripalu, trying to help them with their diversity.
Yeah.
To name a few things.
Yeah. So I think you bring up a good point, because it's Children's Hospital. We've actually done a lot of work with kids.
Mass General Hospital.
Yeah.
For
So
6 years we did children's program
Mm-hmm.
for the summer fit program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Annually. So we don't have any kids of our own, but we're really passionate about other people's kids.
Yeah, and I think that's where we just feel so lucky to have you joining the team, and all this. I mean, we probably could have done this whole segment on the impact you've made, and we probably still wouldn't have had enough time. But I just think for Boston Children's Hospital, we just are so excited to have you really leading our day. And with that too, if I know for Yoga Reaches Out, we have a lot of yogis that they may have been practicing for a long time, but then it's such a wide range. We might have some new yogis, but if there's anyone watching that's thinking about beginning yoga, what advice would you give them?
We have so many beginners who come to Afro Flow Yoga, and what I find is many people come, they're hesitant. There's a lot of fear sometimes, or anxiety around trying something new, and maybe they've seen all these Instagram posts of people standing on their heads and doing all these poses, and oftentimes people say, I can't do it, or I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible enough. So what I would say to that is it's a practice. And really, yoga is beyond just the asana practice, which is the physical postures. It's about meditation, about your breath, and really bringing harmony and balance within. So the mind, oftentimes when people come to Afro Flow Yoga, we encourage non-judgment, the practice of non-judgment of self and others, so that you will most likely start judging yourself. And so notice in that moment, and then come into the breath and take little baby steps. It really, really takes time. Jeff and I have been practicing for many, many years, and I'm still learning, still a student. So I would say be patient and be gentle and practice self-compassion when you come into your yoga practice.
I think the best thing is that when we started, there were a lot of people who were not comfortable either going into certain, because they felt like they had to be skinny. And now you have so many people who have different body styles that are doing amazing things. So, the body image people don't have to worry about it. And we've been so blessed to have so many beginners. Yeah. So it's a blessing to have people feel comfortable to come, and they've never done yoga, or even we've had people that never danced before, and then next thing you know, they're like leading the circle, and getting out of that, they're stuck in these in these mental challenges of feeling like they're not good enough to, or they don't look a certain way. And of course, having a diverse group, it really helps people in their comfort level, because, they're, in the past, a yoga person looked like, just, slim, Caucasian woman, I think even men, big men that come, and they're, might be 6'5" and 240 pounds, and, and we've made them feel comfortable. So, and
That's great.
And mixing it up with the movement, so people tell them, if you just do what you can. There's no, set standard, of the sequence,
Right. And then our last question too. So we know a lot of people might be home watching this, but do you have any health and wellness tips that you'd like to share? I think health and wellness, in addition to yoga, is just so important right now. But what advice would you give somebody watching this at home?
Something that comes to mind is reducing your acid in your diet. We have a machine, it's a Kangen water machine, and it has a low pH, so that helps your immune system. For one thing off the top of my head, lots of greens.
Yeah.
Green drinks.
There you go. A man of his word. Yep.
And I would also say practicing gratitude when I get up every morning, no matter what is happening in the world, because there's so much bad news these days, is before I even get out of bed, I go down a list of gratitude. And that really changes my attitude, and it makes me feel good. So it sets me up for the day. Watching our thoughts, particularly now in times of uncertainty, it's really easy to go into doom and gloom. So watching the thoughts, maybe having some mantras is helpful. And always the breath is the go-to. Particularly, I just hear so many people are waking up with heart palpitations, just anxiety. So breathing technique, a real simple deep breathing, belly breathing technique is great. It helps keep you calm. And our meditation today.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably are stuck now, and today we did a meditation, and it kind of focused on your intention, or your vision, and your light. So it helps you, have I guess a plan, and then the next one was the intention, and then of course the other is being able to project, so you get a reflection back from people or what you're projecting. Leslie's the queen of the smile. She's always, you see people, and being here in Boston, people, this is like one of the least friendliest places, and we'll be out running or something, and then I'll notice somebody smiling at me, but it's Leslie's behind me, and it's actually Leslie that's projecting this vibe, because when I'm by myself, I never noticed them smiling at me, like, oh yeah, that's right, Leslie's behind me. Yeah, putting it out there. So yeah, a smile is a gift, is a beautiful gift to give people. So.
Well, that's and even though we're on Zoom, I can even feel it right now, and I think that's such a great way to really end the interview. But then also I can't wait to have everyone watch this too, because I think they'll be able to bring it into their day too, what they're projecting, and really living with gratitude. And I just think it's so important. So with that, I just, I know how busy you are, and really appreciate you taking time, not only for this interview, but to support Yoga Reaches Out and our patients and families at Boston Children's. And for everyone out there too, don't forget to register for Yoga Reaches Out. It's going to be a great day that you won't want to miss. So thank you again, and we're just so thrilled to work with you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Yoga Reaches Out, and thank you, Children's Hospital.
Yes.
Thank you, Leslie.
And thank you, Jeff. We're grateful to you, so thank you.
Awesome. Well, have a great day. Thank you, guys.
You too. Bye, everybody.